Are you unmuted?
Am I unmuted? Oh, I think you got. Can you guys hear me with the face and the words? Cool. Rock on. Actually, can you guys hear me? Are you sure you guys can hear me? Because it's really loud. The sound of Jocelyn crushing it. You know what I'm saying? She killed it. Oh, that might have been a crime. No homicide. God, it's a weird start to this one. I'm Paige. I'm an addict. Listen, I'm still on Alberta time. I'm tired. It's wild. And listen, I am honored. It is a privilege to be of service and to be Jane's pinch hitter at this meeting in particular. I can't tell you what a privilege it is to be like coming to Guelph and hanging out with you guys. So, you know, one of the things I like to do is I like to share my experience, strength, and hope, but I like to do it a little weird. I know it's a shock. Paige. Been weird, you know? And so what I like to do is sometimes I like to share my experience, strength, and hope through a format that is known as the Big Book Bounce Around. And if you've not heard of this before, that's completely reasonable because I made it up. And so if you have your book to hand, awesome. And if you don't worry about it. I'm going to read it. It'd be rude if I was like, as it says on page 25, you all know it, right? And listen, if you're on that, not you, Kim, you're driving, you be safe. But everyone else, you guys got your books, you got it. Sorry. It's my friends, and it's delightful. So let's pop it off. Very bottom paragraph of page 25. Bottom paragraph. It says, if you are seriously alcoholic as we were, we believe there is no middle of the road solution. And man, I don't know about you, but when I came to the rooms at 12 Step, I was hoping it wasn't as bad as you guys. You know what I mean? I would do this thing. Now, I know it's this thing that would never, ever happen in Guelph, right? What's your hockey team? The Storm? The home of the Storm. I don't know. We almost called it the Knights, and then people are going to yell at me. It's like, that's London, Paige. Get out of here. Take the 407. You pay for that transponder. You know what I'm saying? You know what's up? I was on the 407 yesterday. Nick picked me up from the airport, and I was texting people. We're like, where are you? I'm like, the 407, like a fancy pants. Woo! Which is only funny to you guys. Yeah. Oh, but I would do this thing that you wonderful, lovely people from Guelph and Cambridge would never, ever do. It's called judging the speaker. You know what I would hear somebody share, not Jocelyn, she's lovely, but I would hear some jerk like me natter on. You know what I mean? I think, whoa, I'm way worse than that girl. You know what I mean? Whoa. And I would hear somebody else speak, and I'd think, man, I'm not as bad as that guy. And I would look for all the ways I didn't fit. I would look for all the ways I was different than you. I would look for all the ways I didn't belong. And I was hoping I came to the rooms after a series of unfortunate oopsie-doopsies and whoopsie-daisies. You know what I mean? I was hoping I wasn't driven here under the lash of addiction or alcoholism. I was hoping what brought me here was a couple of my andas. You know what I mean? I'm an addict anda. And a couple of my yeah buts. Yeah, but I'm young. Yeah, but my ex was bad too. Let me tell you about him. We can write some inventory on him. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I have lots of inventory. It's well inventoried. And even in a men's or two, more than two. I don't know. Anyway, I'll go off on that tangent. That's the problem. It's in person, and I will just go on a tangent. I do that online too. And so I would look for all the ways I wasn't like you. I would look for all the ways I didn't fit in. And it goes on to say we were in a position where life was becoming impossible. And it's like, man, how did you know? How did you know? My experience was that life was becoming impossible. Whether I was drunk, whether I was high, or whether I was sober, my life was becoming impossible. To get out of bed in the mornings, to open my eyes, that felt impossible. And it says, and if we had passed into the region from which there is no return through human aid. God, I hope that's not me. You know what I mean? I was hoping I wasn't in that region. It said we had two alternatives. One was to go onto the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of our intolerable situation as best we could. And the other, to accept spiritual help. And I don't know about you, that was a bit of a tough choice. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, I don't know about that one, you know? And so I got to find out, do I have the illness that is described in this book? Do I have the illness that you guys are talking about in these rooms? Am I one of you? And what we can do is, if we got our book, we can go across the page, very bottom paragraph of page 24. It says, when this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid. Beyond human aid. And unless locked up, may die or go permanently insane. So I got two things that would put me beyond human aid. And it says, this sort of thinking. So I got to figure out, what is this sort of thinking that we're talking about? And what are these alcoholic tendencies? What does that mean? Addict tendencies. What does that look like? Well, if you have your book to hand, let's pop over to page XXX, which I always think of that movie with Vin Diesel. I never watched it, you know what I mean? But I imagine, like, yeah, let's jump out of a helicopter with a snowboard. There's not snow in the sky. Well, that's where it comes from. I don't know. Page XXX, and it's in the doctor's opinion. XXX, woo! And it's right after, yeah, you know what's up. And it's right after the 5 different types of alcoholics. It says, all these and many others have one symptom in common. They cannot start drinking, or for our purposes, or start using without developing the phenomenon of craving. Oh, a tea, thank you. I know it's delightful. So actually, you know, I'm working this in. Some of you guys are like, you know what she's going to say about the tea. You guys know I love you. Well, you can't put a screen in front of me and then, like, talk at me. It's like when people put it in the chat. I'm all over the place. I have been up for hours. Anyway, it says all these and many others have one symptom in common. This is one symptom that each and every one of us who has this illness has. That we cannot start drinking. We cannot start using. I cannot take a mind-altering substance without developing this phenomenon of craving. This phenomenon, as we have suggested, may be the manifestation of an allergy which differentiates these people and sets them apart as a distinct entity. What are we talking about? Well, here's what it looks like for me. I take a drink, I take a hoot, I take a drug, I take a pill, and I experience you know what I'm saying? Ease, relief, comfort, serenity. You know, that hole in the depth of my soul that nothing can fill. Takes a breath. You know, the screaming that comes from the depth of my soul, it begins to quiet down. There is a numb. You see, I get loaded and I get a solution for life. But you see, that's just abnormal. You know what I mean? Normal people are just going to have a drink or two and go watch the Guelph Storm. I remember the sports team. Go me, sports. We'll just watch the Storm play. Have a beer or two, probably overpriced. They do not take a drink, they do not take a drug, and they do not experience a solution for life, but that doesn't make me an addict. One of the defining characteristics is this physical allergy. So I take that drink, I take that drug, I take that hit, I take that hoot, I get a moment of, it's like a little switch that goes off in the back of my head, and it tells me more. And the more I drink and use, the more that I have to drink and use. See, I take a drink and it demands a second, and that second insists on 4, and that fourth will not relent until I've had 8, and the 8th is screaming at me until I've had 16. See, I start to use, I need that next hit far more than I needed that first. And if you guys are like, Paige, are you sure it's an allergy? Well, I'll give you 2 examples. My stomach stopped handling coffee about 2 years ago, which I share with you because it sucks so bad. It's the worst. I mean, tea, thank you, but it's not the same. Y'all know it's not the same. So every morning I start my day with prayer, I start my day with meditation, and I have a cup of Earl Grey tea. But not once in my life have I ever gone on a 3-day Earl Grey tea bender. I've never done it. I've never had a cup of tea and slammed back another and another and another and gone through all the tea in the house and found a box of chamomile in the pantry and snorted it because it's got to be the same. I just have a cup of tea. You know what I'm saying? Now, Chris, he's like, why you always got halls on you? You know what I mean? He's like, what's up with that? And I have this joke. It's like, I'm on the menthol. And it's because I work with a lot of sponsees. I do a lot of talks. I do a lot of talking. Now, I got the halls. But I not once have I ever broken trust or a relationship or hopes or dream. You know what I mean? With my halls. Not once. Not once have I been like, you know what I could do with that? I could crush it. You know what I'm saying? Not once. I just have the halls. I get a little bit of a soothing effect, and I'm able to say more words, you know? That's it. So I have this abnormal reaction once I start where I need more. And you see, I was kind of alluding to some of the consequences with my halls. See, my halls, when I use my halls, I take one, and that's it. But I don't do that thing where it takes me and I need more, and I then burn my life to the ground. You see, when I use mind-altering substances, I can't control the amount that I take. And I cross lines in the sand that I would never cross. I never wanted to cross. I would break hearts that meant everything to me, destroy trust that was so important to me. My life would be one that was absolutely unrecognizable to me. I don't know about you, but I would come to in the morning filled with guilt and shame and remorse, and I hated myself. I hated who I became. Couldn't look myself in the eyes. And it goes on to say the only relief we have to suggest is entire abstinence. And that throws me into a bit of a problem. See, I burn my life to the ground. I cross these lines, I break these hearts, I lose my hopes and dreams and my dignity. And I come to and I say I'm never going to do it again. See, I don't know about you, it's looking like I got some alcoholic tendencies. You know what I mean? I can't control this thing. So that means I need to not use. So let's go back to page 24. I should have put a bookmark in. That would have made sense. Oh, well, found it. And so it says, when this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, it sounds a little like me. What are we talking about when we talk about this sort of thinking? Well, let's go to the bottom of page, or top of page 24, in the italics, in the squiggly writing. It says, the fact is, the fact, not theory, not possibility, not probability. The fact is that most alcoholics, for our purposes, addicts, for reasons yet obscure, we do not know why, have lost the power of choice in drink. I do not have the ability to choose whether I will drink again. I do not have the ability to choose whether I will use again. And do you know what that means? If I do not have the power of choice, that means I will. I will drink again. I will use again. It is the inevitability of my relapse. And that's what we call our mental obsession. It says our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. I don't know about you, but for me, it takes some willpower to be an addict. Bear with me, you know what I mean? It takes willpower to scrape myself off from the bathroom floor covered in my vomit and face the day again. That takes willpower. It takes willpower after I've destroyed every relationship in my life to show up another day. That takes willpower. But that willpower does nothing against the first drink, the first drug, the first hit, the first hoot, the first high. I say I'm never going to do it again, and I mean it, and it has no effect. You see, what happens for me is a day, a week, a month, several months down the line, a thought happens in my mind, and that thought happens when I am as sober as I am today, but my illness is untreated. And that thought looks a little something like, this time will be different. Nobody will ever know. I'll go out for 3 drinks. You know, my problem is alcohol, but I can smoke crack like a lady. I was drinking with all my homies in Berta. I was getting high with all those guys in Calgary. But we're in Ontario. There's no addicts here. Never seen an addict in Guelph in my life. Guelph, no addicts there. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot. There's a bunch. Sorry, they're there. You know what I mean? It looks like if you were feeling the way that I was feeling, you'd have to get high too. If you're going through what I was going through, if you went through what I went through, you'd have to get high too. It looks like I'm going to kill myself so I don't get loaded. It looks like the obsession is on me. Take a drink, take a drug, get high. Take a drink, take a drug, get high. Take a drink, take a drug, get high until I finally give in. And it looks like I got a case of the suddenlies. You know what I mean? I have a crack pipe in my mouth. I got a drink in my hand, and I do not know how it happened. I had no intention of getting high, and there I was getting high. You see, I have a thought that takes me back again and again to the first drink, the first drug, the first hoot, the first high. And it says we are unable at certain times to bring it into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. Anyone ever heard this saying, play the tape to the end? Anyone ever tried that? It's a really good idea if you don't have this illness. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. But let me tell you what happens to me when I play the tape to the end. And some of you guys are going to be able to point out the logical fallacy real quick. So all right, I'm Paige, I'm having a tough time. Thinking about getting high. All right, I'm going to play the tape to the end. All right. I'm imagining myself at the end of the tape. Once you know, I'm sitting on a grand piano. I've got a red sequin evening gown. So never in my life. Never in my life, you know what I mean? There's a chandelier and a candelabra. I've got those nice long gloves because, I am classy. I got a glass of Chardonnay, maybe champagne, and I got one of those super long cigarette holders. There's a crack pipe in it, but don't look too closely. You know what I mean? I have played the tape to the end. You know what I'm saying? And what's the reality? What's the reality? I'm pissing my pants behind a dumpster smoking crack with the guy I just met. You know what I mean? Sometimes I'll say, gentleman I just met, and then y'all will be like, gentlemen. And I'm like, I just met him. I should not pass judgment. And some of you are like, girl, some discernment would be good. You know what I mean? And so that is the reality. And so there will be a time when the playing the tape to the end will not work. And it's a little like a fire extinguisher. You know what I mean? Jocelyn set it on fire. And I need no, we don't need a spiritual fire extinguisher. We're good. But if there was an actual fire, I do not need a fire extinguisher that is a 60-40 fire extinguisher. You know what I mean? When it's on fire, I need it to work every single time. And to be an addict is to hit this realization. The very last sentence of that paragraph, we are without defense against the first drink. So I am defenseless. And I want to be very, very clear. Defenseless means I got nothing. I got nothing that I can put between me and that relapse. Nothing. To be defenseless means I will relapse. I will use again. I know that it's ruining my life. I know that it's destroying my life. I know that it's hurting my loved ones. I know that it is not a life that I want, but I will use again. That is what it means to be defenseless. And that is the sort of thinking that we're talking about. Let's go to the bottom of page 24. When this sort of thinking, do I know what it's like to say, I will never do it again, only to do it again? Shoot, that's me. And it says it's fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies. That I know what it's like to take a drink or a drug and have that thing take me where I need more. And the more that I use, the more I need. And I can't control the amount I take. Oh, shoot, that's me. He has probably placed himself beyond human aid. What does it mean to be beyond human aid? Human power is not sufficient. And I'll be transparent with you guys. I did not try everything there was to get sober and stay sober. But here is my experience. Everything that I tried failed. Permanent, contented sobriety was out of reach. I couldn't experience that. I could have put it down for a little bit. And that time that I put it down, man, I just wanted to die, you know? You know, that screaming that comes from the depth of your soul. You know, it feels like your raw exposed nerve ending, and for some ungodly reason, the wind is blowing. See, I could put it down for a bit, but inevitably that thought would come, and that thought would look like I could kill myself or I could get loaded, and those were my two options. You see, I am beyond human aid. And it says, unless locked up, may die or go permanently insane. Those are my options. Now let's pop over to the bottom of page 25. If you are seriously alcoholic as we were, it's looking like I might have that thing. We believe there is no middle of the road solution. And I don't know about you, I came here, I was looking for middle of the road solution. I kind of was hoping I was like a diet addict. So I could do like CA Light, you know? I wasn't after that, like, you know, the real deal. No. It talks about the potential alcoholic, the potential addict. That's me. By the way, if you're wondering, that's the only time in my life I thought I had potential. You know what I'm saying? Potential, you know? But if you are seriously alcoholic as we were, we believe there is no middle of the road solution. What does that mean? That means no human power can keep me sober. That means I can't do some of this. That means that I can't do this for a little while. That means I need to do all of this, all 12 steps out of this book as a way of life, like my life depends on it, because it does. That is what that means. And it says we're in a position where life was becoming impossible. How did they know? And if we had passed into the region from which there was no return through human aid, we had two alternatives. Two. One was to go into the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of our intolerable situation as best we could. And the other to accept spiritual help. And here is my experience. I got two options, and it is the black and white predicament that I find myself in if I have this illness. See, if I don't have this illness, I got options. I got choices. There's a lot of things that I can do, and there's a lot of things that I can try, and there's a lot of things that will work for me if I do not have this illness. And again, what it means to have this illness is when I can't control the amount that I take. And when I say I don't want to do it again, I do it again. That is what that means. If I got this illness, I got two choices. And if I do not actively and intentionally with everything that is in me choose to accept spiritual help, I've chosen. I've made a choice. I don't have the power of choice against the first drug. I don't have the power of choice against the first drink. But here's where I get a choice. Am I going to, with everything that is in me, dive in and accept that spiritual help, accept that way of life? And if I don't, I have chosen the addict death, the alcoholic death, to go on to the bitter ends, blotting out the consciousness of my intolerable situation as best I could, whether I think so or not, whether I believe it or not, whether I like it or not, whether I think I'm different or not. That is my reality if I have this illness. Now before we pop over to the top of page 25, there is a solution. I just want to talk about how 1, 2, 3 begin to work together. Let's pop over the top of page 59. The very top of page 59, it says, half measures availed us nothing. We talk about that in the rooms, and we kind of go, half measures, you know. But what does that mean? That means if I don't do all of this, that's what half measures mean. If I do not do all of this, I will relapse. That's what that means. I'll get high again. I'll drink again. I'll use again. I'll smoke crack again. I will use again. That is what that means. It says, half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. And the turning point is the third step and is the turning point for my entire life. And then it says, we asked. And any time in this book it says we asked, that is a prayer. Y'all know there's a prayer and how it works? There's one right there. God, I ask your protection and care with complete abandon. And that's what I'm looking to do. And so what are we talking about when we talk about steps 1, 2, 3? The first step is coming to the realization that I got this illness known as addiction. And imagine this illness is addiction is a tiger. A tiger that is clearly faster than me. You know what I mean? I'm not speedy. Some of you guys know. I got this tiger that's on me. And I'm trying to put distance between me and that tiger. And I'm trying different things that I can to get sober, to stay sober. And that tiger's barreling down and it's taking swipes at me and it's coming. And what happens is I come to the edge of this cliff. And I see that tiger is coming. That tiger is barreling down, and it's only a matter of time before that tiger gets me. And there's nothing that I can do to stop it. And I look at the edge of the cliff, and I look over the cliff, and what do I see? I see a cloud. And it is a cloud of unknowing. Yes, to borrow from the medieval mystics, it is a cloud of unknowing. I cannot see beneath the cloud, but what do I hear? I hear your voices. I hear your voices saying, jump, take that leap of faith, jump. And I don't see where I'm leaping. I don't see where I'm going, but I trust that you've been there. I trust that the friendly hands are stretched out in welcome. I trust that the solution that has happened to you can happen to me. And the third step is all about taking that leap of faith, taking that jump, and taking the course of actions of the 12 steps as a way of life like my life depends on it, because it does. Let's go back to page 25. It says there is a solution, and I always want to emphasize there is. There is a solution. We have a solution in Cocaine Anonymous. Whether you're new, whether you've been in and out, you've been relapsing and you've been struggling, or maybe you've been sober a little while and you got stuff that's piling up on you and you don't think these steps could possibly help. There is a solution. We have a solution. And here's the most incredible thing. It says almost none of us liked. The self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings, which is the process required for its successful consummation. You know what that means? That means none of us saw these and saw those and thought, oh boy, that's a good idea. Can't wait to do that. I got my notebook for my fourth step already. Oh, amends to my ex. Oh, well, yes, I'd like to. Twice, not three. Just kidding. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. Prayer and meditation? Yeah, I'll do both of that. Daily, inventory, love to. Sponsoring others? Well, yes, addicts are so kind, patient, reasonable, and punctual. For sure. You know what I'm saying? God, I see that word, got no issues there. Love to. No. And that is good news. And the reason that is good news is, you know what that means? That means the steps do not care why I take them. You know, I don't have to wait to have good motives to work the steps. I don't have to wait to be fully willing to do the steps. I don't have to believe that the steps will work for me. I don't have to believe in the way of in the life that is available on offer. I don't have to believe that I'm worthy of it. That's the good news. The bad news is I got to do it. That's the bad news. If I want this result, I got to do it. And it says, but we saw that it really worked in others. And we had become to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. You see, I have a responsibility to the newcomer, and addiction has a responsibility to the newcomer. And addiction's job is to beat somebody like me into a state of reasonableness, to take away all the things worthwhile in my life, to take away my hopes and dreams and abilities and goals and all of that, to take all of that away. But as a recovered member, I have a responsibility to the newcomer. And my responsibility is to be a demonstration of this power. My responsibility is to work these 12 steps as a way of life so that you can see that it works in me, that you can see that there is an answer here. That I'm not flying all the way to just Guelph. I wasn't coming for the hammer. I was there for the hammer. Hamilton, woo! Go Ticats, sports. But that I'm not coming here to give you BS about an experience I have not had. My responsibility is to work these 12 steps as a way of life so that you cannot deny that there's a change that has happened to me. That there's a light that shines through that is not me. Because I was nothing but darkness when I got here. You know what I'm saying? That is my responsibility. And if I have experienced enough pain and a window of willingness opens up and I'm willing to take actions that I wasn't willing to take before, I might grab a hold of this thing. I might take these steps. I might take this action. And it says, when therefore we're approached by those in whom the problem has been solved, not cured but recovered, there's an answer here. There was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. The simple kit of spiritual tools is these 12 steps taken out of this book. That is how I get to that solution. That's how I get there. It says, we have found much of heaven, and we've been rocketed. Oop, CA fellowship. Just there's a reminder, you're going to have fellowship after this. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we have not even dreamed. I want to point out rocketed. Rocketed means it does not take long to get well. Rocketed means it does not take long to recover. It does not take long to have a spiritual experience. And I mean that if you're new, if you're struggling, if you're afraid, if you're in pain, it does not take long to get well here in Cocaine Anonymous. And our responsibility is to help you get it. And what does this solution look like? What I'm gonna do, because I'm aware I'm a little short on time, is I'm gonna talk about the next paragraph. I'm gonna talk about 24, and I'm gonna move us over to 84. And then I'm gonna land this plane. Fingers crossed. It's a budget airline over here, guys. Alrighty. But this is what a spiritual awakening looks like. It says the great fact, not theory, not wish, not hope, not maybe, but the great fact is just this and nothing less. And it says that we. Now, the we in this book is originally the first 100 members, but those of us who do the work as outlined in this book, we are a part of the we. We, those of us who are here today, who have recovered today, we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences. That's our experience. Deep and effective. Man, I needed something effective because if I had that 60-40 fire extinguisher, man, it's burning to the ground. I need something that's going to work 100% of the time. And that's what we have. And it says, which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, towards God's universe. How I show up to life today is radically different. How I show up to CA, to my family, to my friends, to my loved ones is radically different. I have a radically changed attitude, a whole different orientation. And it says the central fact of our lives today, not an over there belief, an over there idea, an over there maybe could be, but the central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty. Certainty. This isn't a wishy-washy maybe sort of deal. Absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. That my Creator has entered into my heart and flows through my heart into all areas of my life in a way which is miraculous. The other way to read that is my Creator has entered into my heart and lives, as in lives within my heart in a way which is indeed miraculous. And either way, where is one of the places in which God can reside and I can tap into if I do this work in my heart? It's not an over there idea. It is an intimate experience that I'm after, just like I was after that experience of the first drink. Just I was after that experience of the first hoot. I was after an experience. I'm not after an idea. I'm after an experience. And He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. You know what I could never do by myself? Permanent, contented sobriety. I could never do that by myself. And more than that, see, I don't know about you, but I never sold the power of alcohol short. I never sold the power of drugs short. I not once sold the power of crack cocaine short. There wasn't a problem in my life that I would not take to substances, absolutely convinced that it would help or it would solve. And I'm reminded not to sell the power of God short. The power of Cocaine Anonymous short. The power of these 12 steps that take me to where I need to go. Never sell that power short. And if you're like, man, I don't know if I'm here for the God stuff. Just hold on. Hold on. This is another description of the spiritual awakening. See, on page 24, it says there's a complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on the hot stove. See, in step 1, I can't stop myself from touching the hot stove. This time I'll be different and I burn myself. You know, the stove, that stove's a gas stove, but this one's electric and I touched the hot stove. You know, I think the stove was hot in Calgary, but we're in Guelph, it'll be different and I touched the hot stove. It's hot here. I believe you. I believe you. You know, and I think, man, if you were going through what I was going through, you'd have to touch the hot stove too. And I cannot stop myself from touching the hot stove. Let's go over to page 84. As right below the line, love and tolerance of others is our code, even on the 401. You guys know. And it says, and we have ceased fighting anything or anyone. The fight is over. I'm not fighting this. Even alcohol, even crack, even cocaine, even pills, even whatever brings you here. I am done fighting. For by this time, sanity will have returned. The thought that tells me I can touch the stove is gone. We will seldom be interested in liquor or drugs. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. I know on page 24, I can't stop myself. On page 84, I know it's hot and I don't want to touch it. It says we react sanely and normally. And we will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the gift that you are talking about. I take these actions, begin to assemble this thing that I don't think will help, that I don't like, and I think my sponsor is out of their freaking mind. But I do them anyways, and a change happens to me, a change I didn't earn, a change I didn't deserve. I'm no better than anyone that is in this room, no worse than anyone that is in this room, and no better or no worse than anyone that is out there dying of this illness. I didn't earn it, I didn't deserve it, but it just comes. I take the actions to receive it. That is the miracle of it. We're not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We talk about that third step and that decision to take that leap of faith, to dive into these steps as a way of life. I do not know if my will and my life will be cared for. I can't see that. But any time in this book I read a promise deeper than that, any time in my life I experience a promise that I can match with what is in that book. It becomes irrefutable evidence of God's care for a silly little drunken crackhead like me. That is God's care. Safe and protected. I have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We're neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That's what we experience here in Cocaine Anonymous. That is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. My job is to do this work as a way of life, like my life depends on it, because it does. And if you have not had this experience yet, what I want you to know is let us help you. Our very lives depend on helping you. So thank you for the opportunity to share.